Hello guys, it is Cynthia Taylu here. I bet you never thought that you would hear me again or hear about the Taylu Podcast. It has been a hot minute, as the kids nowadays may say, since I've uploaded an episode, but we are entering what I have officially decided to call it Season 2 of Taylu. And I wanted to take a different approach this time round and have episodes within the season where I just talk to you guys, because I feel like there's so much that I experience within, my world or my, within my reality that I'm always like, that would make a really great topic. I've already attempted to record this first episode. I did about 8 minutes and I was feeling so nervous and I was just like rambling on, and I was like, you know what, I just need to start again. I've got my dot points and just go for it. It feels very confronting doing a podcast episode by yourself, but we are just going to jump into it. As I've mentioned before, I think I already said this, but hello to anyone new listening, to anyone who doesn't know me, to anyone who doesn't know this podcast. Hello and welcome to the Taylu Podcast. My name is Cynthia Taylu and I've had Taylu now for about a year, hey? But it's been a long fucking time since I've been trying to do this podcast and just be consistent, but we're going into this new phase and I'm feeling really, really good about it. I thought that I would first just kind of give you guys a background about me, and more so with season 2, I want to be able to connect to you, our listeners, and to just get a bit more personal, which is this dilemma that I've always had when it's come to, the internet, the social media sphere, and through my kind of short career of, being online. It's like, how much is too much, I feel as though in my day-to-day life with people who, I run into, or people who I may have more of a closer relationship with, that I'm a very open person. And that's always something I've always wanted to take with me online, but I've just never really known how to go about it, to be honest, because there's always this thing that I feel like when I'm online and someone is a bit more personal and real, or what seems to be their authentic self, I always resonate with that. It's really interesting as well when I think about before I even got online, before I started to do modeling and social media. It's like my full-time job, that, Taylu, which is now in the form of a podcast, Taylu started brewing in 2015. Essentially, I had just finished high school. I was in uni and I was in this period of my life where for the last 12 years of your life, everything has been spelt out for you. People have told you this is what you need to do in order to do this. And this is, it's essentially a roadmap to your life. And I remember getting out and being like, oh, wow, the possibilities are endless. And it's also so crazy when I think about high school. Very random turn, but it's crazy when I think about high school, because I always used to have this like weird moment when I would be in class and I would look outside the window and I'd be like, wow, there's a whole world out there. People are doing stuff and I'm sitting in this room that I come to, 3 times out of the week. And I always used to think, isn't it just so crazy that like people are out there living their lives and doing stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm, against school at all. Like, I'm so grateful that I was able to have such a great education and do school here in Australia. But I always had It's just this weird feeling where I was like, wow, I can't wait to get out of this place. And damn, was I right. As soon as I graduated, I never looked back. But anyways, the story starts in 2015 and I had gotten my first internship. At the time, I was really wanting to do acting. That was something that I'd done in high school. I'd really resonated with it. And it's great. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I feel like I'm jumping around a bit, but I always think about this. How crazy is it that I think about my younger self and, now I'm like in my, 20s. But I think about my younger self and I think I was so willing to be so open with the world and just try things. And I just went for anything that I wanted with full force. And even if, I got knocked back or whatnot, I never questioned it, But at that period in my life, I was studying and I was doing journalism and public relations. I'm going to give you guys a bit of tea right now. A bit of a tea, lol. A bit of tea. Because this also weaves into the present day and I'm miraculously going to, be able to talk oh so finely and make this first episode make sense because obviously this is my first episode and please just be kind to me because I feel like I'm jumping around and also this is kind of me when I talk in real life. But anyways, at the time I was studying journalism and public relations and I'd had, I think the previous summer, I'm pretty sure, something like that. I had gone to America actually to visit my mum. So on my way back home, I had met this guy. We'll just call him Art Boy. How about that? I had met this guy and I remember sitting there and I had almost missed my flight from New York to LAX, mind you. Got onto the flight and we bloody sit there for like 2 hours long because it was something to do with the air condition wasn't working and they had to I don't know, but they had to essentially fix it and whatnot. And I was sitting there and this guy gets up and he walks past and I remember sitting there being like, and I just noticed him straight away. And it just always amazes me that there are just certain people that you're instantly just, I don't know, drawn to. And it's always so hard to explain, to be like, why in that moment was I just instantly notice that person? You know what I mean? I always think about that. It's obviously definitely has something to do with frequency, vibration, which I honestly don't really know a whole lot about. I just know bits and pieces. But this guy gets up and he goes to the flight attendant to be like, hey, I'm flying back to Sydney. I later on found out this. I, at the time, obviously couldn't hear from 20 seats back, but I was looking at him and he just went to go ask about his connecting flight and a lot of people on that flight had connecting flights. So they were a bit like, hey, so we're just chilling here. I'm going to miss my flight. So the next day everyone who ended up having a connecting flight had to stay in near LAX, but it was just it wasn't LA because it was outside of LA and near the airport, and it was just this random bit. But anyways, I end up bumping into Art Boy, who I had seen on the plane. I end up bumping into him, and we the next day in the elevator, and we end up like becoming friends and like hang out for the entire day. And back then when I was younger, like I just romanticized everything in my life, and I would meet a guy and you know, within 10 seconds I'd be like, well, maybe not 10, actually, let's be real. Within 10 seconds I would be like, oh my gosh, love of my life, who is this person? I'm obsessed with you, sort of thing. So end up spending the whole day with this guy. We have the best time ever. Like, it was so chilled. We kissed at the end of the day, and I was like obsessed, literally. And I romanticized him for such a long time. And at that time, I think we like I don't even know if we added each other on Facebook. I literally can't remember now. I think that we wrote on a piece of paper our full names and we like gave it to each other or something like that. Or it was on this like tag thing for when him and I went to the airport, that we wrote our names down. But I was, you know, went back to Australia, obviously told all my friends about it, and I was like so excited about nothing, even because obviously like we didn't keep in touch. Like I think after that I added him on Facebook, I'm pretty sure. So anyways, I'm at uni, I'm thinking about this boy, right? I'm like, I've completely romanticized everything and I'm completely hooked on nothing. And I'm thinking to myself, I would love to spend the summer in Sydney. I would love to, you know, be in the same city as this boy, which is so crazy now to think about. And I don't judge my younger self, but sheesh, she was on another level. So I end up, with my determination, I end up getting an internship in Sydney for 3 months, essentially, to intern at Harper's Bazaar. And my mum was so incredibly kind. She was like, I'll pay for your accommodation. And at the time I was, you know, studying journalism and public relations, and also in saying that, like, I did genuinely want to intern at Harper's Bazaar, and I also looked into some like other PR agencies. But I think what really gave me the push was the thought of, you know, meeting up with this guy. Surprise, surprise, it did not work out. Instead, he was kind of like the catalyst, the push that I needed to kind of like go to Sydney and start interning at Harper's and be like, hey, so I actually really like interning here. However, I don't really see myself as a stylist. I don't really see myself working in the fashion cupboard. And so during that period, I met a lot of people who were around my age, who were quite young, and I felt just so inspired by what I saw. I saw so many young people just going out for their dreams and just putting in the hard yards and not questioning themselves, and being in, you know, rooms with like people who were in their 30s, 40s and had like years and years of experience, that kind of leaving that trip or that 3 months stint in Sydney, it really inspired me to just go for whatever I wanted in life. And from that, I ended up, which I was always going to do. I'm pretty sure I had already organized this, but I went on an internship I went on student exchange to Milan, which completely changed my life. And whilst I was there, I started a blog called Taylu, which is what we know it as now. And on that, I was able to really just talk about things that I was experiencing as a young adult. And whilst I was away, I, you know, entered my 20s and I was meeting people from all over the world. I had the opportunity to travel whilst I was studying. But the common theme that I saw was everything that I experienced, everything that I wrote about on my blog, so many of my friends or people who I didn't even know would come up to me and be like, hey, you spoke about, feeling a bit lost. I feel the exact same way. Or you spoke about heartbreak. I feel the exact same way. And it's so interesting to reflect back on that period, because I say to myself, I feel like I was way more courageous, honestly. And also it's kind of different when, at that time I didn't really have a following. I just had this, random blog that I would write, and, like quite a few people would like read it, but it was mainly like friends and family. But I always just loved the unexpected conversations that I would have with people. And I felt like every single person not every single person, but, who were like most people that I would speak to, I would just learn something new, and it really just opened me up to the world. So when I came back to Oz, I continued my blog, and I still was drawing on my own experiences. And then after a while, I think I just kind of, if I'm honest, I think for me, I lost the motivation, because I felt like the blog wasn't growing as much as I wanted it to, which is really sad now when I think about it. And I also started to question if, just writing about my experiences was actually like interesting enough. You know what I mean? So yeah, I took a step back from it for, I think, about a year or two, and then started it up again. And since then, I definitely have been kind of like unsure exactly of where I wanted this to go and what I wanted the blog exactly to be about. But for now, what I can say is that Taylu is actually, sorry, I just want to say, so I came back home, I did the blog for a while, and after a while, I was like, I just need to take a step back. I feel as though there are things within me that are changing, and I kind of want to, change the direction of where this is going. And I really was inspired to just like talk to friends or people who I met that had like a story that really resonated with me about challenges that they had gone through, within their life, and how they overcame it. And so then I was like, you know what? I should actually still have the still have the blog, and, write, but also get other people to contribute, and then have the podcast and interview people who like, inspire me. And so there's so many things, you could talk about that are so incredibly relatable. So yeah, I decided to do that, which took way longer than I anticipated, but I still haven't completely made sense out of it. I feel like that motivation or that drive that I had when I was younger, when I first started my blog, and I would like literally stay up till like 4 a.m., doing stuff. It just wasn't really there as much, which is something that I've also really been thinking about when it comes to, is it a thing, when you're younger and you're such like an overachiever? Because when I was in high school, or just, especially like uni, like I was constantly just going at full force. Is it a thing for you to kind of have like burnout, that I feel like I listened or had a conversation with someone about that, but I kind of feel like, say from about like 2018 to about 2020, I feel like I kind of had a period where I had a bit of a burnout in a sense. But yeah, took a huge break from the podcast, and obviously I started it again, and I've definitely had quite a few people on the podcast who have inspired me so much, but I just really struggled with being consistent and also figuring out like a a rhythm, to the podcast and everything. So took another break, and now we're here, officially calling this season 2. I want to try things, a bit different. I want to try and do more solo episodes and talk about, things that I feel like you guys can relate to, or just random thoughts, because for the past 2.5 years have been crazy. I really just want this podcast to be a safe zone to talk about our current world, our experiences, the things that inspire us, the things that have hurt us. I want this to be a place where we can just talk about life, and to really make anyone feel like they can do whatever they put their minds to. That was always like my intention. And just thinking back to the last 2.5 years of my life and just the ups and downs, but also just how crazy my current reality is, and thinking back to that girl who back in 2015 literally, I didn't move to Sydney, but tried following a boy who didn't even really know that she existed, to then a dominoes effect of working for a pretty full-on fashion brand, to working for a pretty full-on fashion magazine, and then, through that meeting other people and just being really inspired by them, and then going overseas for exchange and seeing the world and just gaining more confidence and being like, oh wow, this is what life is about. Just being open to experiences, having conversations, meeting people, and I just wanted to encapsulate all of those experiences and put it into a podcast form to be able to, speak about the things that matter to us. I thought that it would just be nice for my very first episode of season 2 and just coming back onto the podcast. I thought that it would be really nice to just sit and have a chat to you guys. I really hope that I've made sense and I haven't rambled on for too long. But yeah, I'm feeling a bit more at ease. I was feeling quite nervous when I first started the podcast, and I literally had to redo it. Not redo it, I literally only recorded 8 minutes on the other one. Welcome to season 2 of the Taylu Podcast, and I really, really hope that you guys come back next week, and we are going to be consistent. We're going to have some beautiful guests on this podcast who are going to walk us through their life story, who are going to tell us how they got to where they are and the things that they've overcome. And I feel as though there's just always something that you can learn from someone else. It doesn't matter, if they're completely different from you or different walk of life. There's just that once you're open to just learning and, meeting new people, there's always something that you can learn. Anyways, I have been putting off doing a solo episode for literally the longest time ever, probably now for I don't even know, 4 or 5 months, because I was just so nervous and I was kind of unsure what to talk about. But I'm really happy that I've done this, and yeah, and thank you for listening, and can't wait to chat next week. This is just the beginning.